Okay, so this video is to describe the JP Morgan Bank statements, basically what we call kind of monthly reporting, but it's all of the daily details of any activity that happens in the JP Morgan Bank account for each and every. You will be receiving, as of right now, we've discussed getting this this weekly report from Laura on Mondays. Every Monday she will send you the fiscal or the month-to-date report from JP Morgan, and then depending on when the month-end close is, she will send you on the first day of the month what is in essence then the full month-to-date report. And then you'll go through the process that I'm showing right now and then send that to her in order to do the balance sheet review for month-end close for each and every that she manages on her side of the responsibilities. So I'm going to show you what the report looks like, what the report that you'll get from her, and then how to enter it into your monthly report that you will maintain for yourself. So let me share my screen, and I'm also gonna go off video here. Okay. So sharing my screen. Okay. So basically all I do is I will start with the original, or said differently, the month before file, excuse me, and then I'll delete everything and then just save it as the new month that we're working in. So this has already been done. So this is the month of November file. I've already deleted everything from the October file, excuse me, and getting ready to go ahead and enter a couple different things right now. So minimize that so I can see the screen. This is the report. So this is a copy of the report that Laura will be sending to you on Monday and then on the first day of the new month. Basically, all you need from this report is just to go to the Details tab. And the first thing I do is a little bit of formatting just so that it's easier to work with. If you go to the very top left-hand corner and just highlight everything, and then just, I click on wrap text and unwrapped text. That way it kind of pops everything in the columns a lot easier to see. And then I will also, just for a sake of what I do or how I use this report, I give myself a couple of rows up there at the top, and then I will also filter on the titles, and I will do a subtotal formula here, if I can type today, and then just, scroll all the way down, and I will do that for both the credits and debits on this report. I will also make them a currency format, and not that you need to do that. That's just something that makes it a little bit easier for me to see things. And like I said, you'll get this report from her weekly. Right now it's scheduled to come on Mondays. Do a little bit of formatting, and then this makes it a lot easier. You're only going to copy over through column AH. Everything past AH isn't needed, and we don't bring it over into kind of the master monthly report. But one thing I do, I would encourage you to continue to do is filter this, or I should say sort this column, this very last column that you'll bring over from earliest to latest, because as you get reports each week. She depends on when she pulls the report on Monday, for example. So let's say she pulled the report like I just did for today earlier in the morning. She's only going to get, a couple of entries maybe for November 5th. She may not get all the entries for November 5th, and that's where you're going to want to be careful when you copy and paste over into your master file, getting all of the entries, as well as not duplicating entries when you bring it over into your master. So right now, since I'm just starting from scratch, I have nothing in my main folder, or excuse me, in my main spreadsheet. So I'm just going to copy exactly everything that's here. And then I'm going to go to my main file. And then I'm just going to, actually don't have to copy paste values, you can even just copy paste. And then what you'll notice when you bring it over here, to the far right, there's going to be some additional formulas and data that we need to tag all of these entries. And I also did show on this file some instructions above each column where necessary. So in this case, I have reminded myself, as well as anybody that would do this file, when you download it, to make sure on that download file, before you bring it over here, to sort this column from old to new, to making sure that you're copying over all new lines, and also picking up, if there were 10 line items for a particular day, and when the report was run for you, it only picked up the first 5, you want to make sure that you're getting all 10 for that, that day. And then the other thing is, over here to the left of the report, I've also made a comment here that you want to make sure to check both of these totals for the credits and the debits. That's another check that you have all of the individual line items from the bank statement at any point in time that you have updated this report. So we'll check these 2 amounts right now. So 35,840. You go back to what in essence is the downloaded report from Laura, 35,840.47, and the debit amount through November 5th is 42,580. That's your other check. So in this example, it was simple because we were just starting from scratch with the November data. When you come back, for example, when you update this on Monday, November 10th, when she sends you an updated report, through Monday morning, then you'll have to make sure that when you're bringing this over, that you're not duplicating line items, and that in fact you're getting all of the line items that are for the month to date. I go ahead and I've saved this, so I'll show you where on the TeamSpace this report is. We just saved them in the JP Morgan daily and monthly reports, the daily reporting folder, current fiscal year 25-26, and there is I created already the monthly folder for November, and I've already saved this, but I save it, with the date of the report, that it is in fact the JP Morgan report, and then I just put my initials just because as we're in transition, which report I did and then which report you will own going forward. Just hit save, and this is great. Go ahead and close this. I don't need that open anymore. And then one other thing, well, no, let me go ahead and do this. So you've brought the details over. So let's pretend that it's Monday. You've brought the new details over, and now you basically need to tag every single entry as to what it is for. So the first thing that I do, because there's a pivot table that we have that kind of shows just all of the cash items in one fell swoop, there is drop downs in each one of these rows here, and it's going to be based on what's happening over here to the left. So kind of what is it for? Is it a Google entry? Is it a Stripe entry? Is it a Facebook charge? What is it for? So even though it's sort of over here, this is a cleaner way to get the transaction type and tag each one. So this particular one, for right now, I know that it's bill.com, it's for a vendor. So I'm just starting with the word vendor because I know, like, behind the scenes what will trigger the right tag. Obviously, in this case, it's going to be Google. So if you just start with the word G, it's going to bring the drop down. Shopify sometimes can be one of two things. Either you've gotten a fee from Shopify, which would then be specific to a debit. In this case, Shopify is actually paying you for the week. I'm going to go ahead and also minimize those columns so I can see stuff easier. Again, just kind of bringing over some stuff here. So e-wallet, that is going to be, I'm pretty sure, the credit card charges. Yeah, so you'll kind of see here this divvy charge. So I also know that I can start with the word vendor, and then all the items that have this formula as a check will require additional data. We'll come back to that here in a minute. But right now, just doing a simple tag as to what it's for. So this is for the direct charges from Facebook. This is most likely a Shopify fee, and I say that because it is a debit, so they're charging us a monthly fee in order for us to use Shopify, and they have a direct debit process. And then the rest of these are pretty simple. So Google, PayPal, Google, Shopify, Stripe, Google, Facebook, Google, and Facebook. So that's the first start in tagging the individual line items. That is going to feed this cash notes tab. So I'll go ahead and show you. If I go back over here and just do change source data, it should just automatically be set up kind of through row 400, which is typically way more rows than you'll ever have, but we'll leave it as is. So we'll hit OK, and we'll say refresh. And now you'll see it's just a simple pivot table to kind of demonstrate at any point in time how much money we have sent to any one vendor, kind of in just a quick format here. And then what we're going to do is actually provide slightly more details on these individual check items. So then I filter for the checkable items, and we have a couple of vendor bills. And sometimes they're easy and sometimes they require a little bit more research. Depends on the item at hand. So in this case, I'm also going to go ahead and hide so I can see this a little bit easier. So this one is a singular payment to Fluff Studios. And I'm pretty sure, yeah, this was a new vendor. So one of the things that you have to do when you have a new vendor is you're going to, there's technically, if you call it the vendor master data master workbook, where you're capturing all of the invoices and as they're going through the queue on the bill.com platform. But then you're going to have kind of a subset vendor master data in your monthly JP Morgan report. And that is to capture just the vendor name and in parentheses what budget bucket it's going to hit. So I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Fluff is MSA. But I'm going to go ahead and open the monthly invoice report because I can't remember. And this happened to be an invoice that I did not actually do, that Lucia and Lauren did directly in the system. I believe, let me make sure I did capture that. I think I did, yeah. So, and basically you would come here, and I tend not to, when I do get a new vendor, I don't necessarily update the JP Morgan report when I'm also updating this file. You can do it whenever you either see the new vendor pop up, or if it makes sense to you when you're updating this vendor master data tab in your master workbook. You can also go to the JP Morgan monthly report and insert that like subset data. I tend to just do it on the fly, like when a vendor is actually paid and I need to add that vendor, I'm sort of reminded, oh yeah, like I created that new vendor earlier this month or whatever. In this case, that just happened last week. And normally it wouldn't have been that fast, but they did a kind of an urgent payment. So in this case, the name is showing up and it's MSA. The name in bill.com may actually show up a little bit different. If we go back to the JP Morgan report over here, it's showing up as Fluff Studios. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy that. Actually, I'll copy it, but then I didn't create a section for it over here. So I'm just going to put it in kind of alphabetical order over here. You can do it a couple of different ways. You can either insert row or just, I went ahead and just copied or cut and moved down the remaining items here. And you can just copy from up above, and then I will go back over here, and capture, I should have inserted the row first before I copied over the information from the bank statement, but it's all good. Yeah. So then I just need to copy that in here. And then I'm going to also put in here MSA, as it is in fact a marketing support activity, or MSA, budget item from over here. You can go ahead and close this file. I'm not going to save it. I wasn't really doing anything over there. So now the Fluff Studios is going to be an item that will show up in my dropdown. I can do Fluff or start typing, and that will bring it as a vendor payment. Okay, so these 287-cent items, it looks like, for whatever reason, those are an in and out. Looks like it was an account verification. Lucia must have been doing something to verify the account. So we're just going to, I don't know what I want to call this. There should be, let's go over to the master data, because I do have some oddball, not oddball, but some items that so payment process credit, what's the interest, cash infusion, bill.com test. Might put this as, I'm just going to change this so that it's more generic, but we'll leave it as a bill.com test. We'll also call it account verify. And then we'll tag those two items as that. So bill.com test account verify, and then over here, I don't think I have, let's see, so that's coming from this box over here. So what I might do is just kind of create another little category here, bill.com test account verify. Doesn't happen very often, so I don't maybe necessarily need it, but might as well have a test line item. I don't tend to change that very often or update that very often because most activities or categories I've come across over the last 8 or 9 months. And this is also relatively new, this bucketing for that cash notes tab. We had a couple times where we wanted to do a cash forecast update with Luthia and myself to see how much cash was going out the door each month for each vendor. And then also we were forecasting the next handful of months to do a cash forecast to see how much money they would need to get an infusion from Native as they are the same legal entity. So these were relatively simple. The one thing that we do also try to do is bring over the invoice number. And you can do this in one of two ways. You can either go into bill, depending on if you have a lot of invoices, it would be probably simpler to do it from bill and run a report. But in this case, I have one invoice for one vendor, and I'm just going to get the invoice number from here. Most of the time when I do this, I do in fact run a bill.com report. So the invoice number is 2537. Just going to bring that over, 2537. When in fact this says, and I can open up last month's October file, when this column says for multiple payments, that's when in fact you will need bill.com. And actually, I'll go ahead and do that just so that you can see what I'm speaking about. So if I go in here and go to bill and let that log in, I will also open up the October file as a reference as well. Log in here. Sip of water here while this is logging in. We'll let that log in. Then this one, the e-wallet, you will get an email from Luthia and a report that the beginning of the month. This is not specific for current month-end close. So for example, the credit card is on a delay. So these are all charges that happened in the month of October, but bill.com doesn't charge each and every until November 3rd or November 4th in this case. And then Luthia will send you the report. The only time that you would update this, most likely for a month-end close, is the month of June. So in early July of next year, for the June month close, you guys might go ahead and try and get this in as Actually, how did we do that? Yeah, I think we added it to the month of June as June activity. Although, I'm sorry, I'm speaking out of turn. We ended up accruing, I think, for the amount since the charge doesn't hit our bank account and like, let's say we're at the fiscal year end, the charge won't hit until July. It's for June activity. So I'm pretty sure we ended up showing it as the month of June via an accrual. But you'll want to confirm that with Laura when you guys are getting to fiscal year end, how you want to manage that particular month end close. But for right now, we just manage it in the month of November for October activity, and we'll make notation of that accordingly. So this file right here, I went ahead and saved it on that same SharePoint site, and I've opened it already. We're going to bring over a handful of items from this particular report. I'm also going to filter it similar to like what I did with the JP Morgan report, and maybe put this in order if it isn't already. So we're going to put it from newest to oldest. And then I'm going to go back to the JP Morgan report. I'm going to go to the credit card transaction tab. And then everything that's highlighted in yellow is what I'm going to copy over from the report from Lucia. And then these last two columns you'll see have drop-down menus that we will then tag the charges accordingly. So we'll bring over the date, the cardholder email, just because it's the easiest way to tag as to whose credit card it was, the amount, which is right here, copy, this value, merchant, and then what P&L bucket it is. Lucia is tagging this herself. And that's all you really need from that report itself. The one thing that we will also need to do is flip the sign of the amount to be in the same signage as our JP Morgan report. So in essence, there was $7,504.56 of charges. You go back over here, you'll see that same amount, hopefully. So 7,504.56, 7,504.56. And then what we will do is we will categorize them basically kind of the same buckets here, but we don't need, it's easier, if you will, to just pick this up. Most of these are going to be NSA charges, it looks like, to a point, a couple of SRA, MSA, TC, great. Actually, easier too. I do. There's a couple of different ways depending on how many line items there are. But if we just do that, then I can make that simple. Then go back up there. Do that, and then in theory, I should have captured all of them. Go down there to check, which I did. We are showing in our file 53 line items, and in her file, she's also showing 53 line items. That's always a good thing. And then the fun part is you need to pull the vendor and sometimes you might not have it and you have to add it. So these are the ones that you want to bring over as e-wallet. And again, you should be able to like do that and it would pop up, which means to me we don't have it. So I'm going to come back to this one, FedEx, and then we have that. Pretty sure. Don't think we have this one. Oh, we do. Black, FedEx. For now, I'm also going to hide this. Do John Brand. Just want to make sure you bring over the e-wallet version. Very rarely are we paying a vendor via credit card and wire transfer, but you never know. So you just want to make sure that the ones that you're bringing over are in fact the e-wallet version. So you're tagging this because you're going to bring this data over into the line item details by inserting a bunch of rows. You also want to make sure when you're doing this that the P&L or the budget tag is showing the same. There has been talk where there could be times, which, there we go. I just was about to say, where she might tag a particular vendor to a different budget item. I don't know if Laura is on board with that or if, because in reality, it's going to be a one-for-one. Like a vendor is either going to be coded as MSA or SRA, etc. I've highlighted that one up above because it is different than what we have it tagged in our vendor master data. Sorry, I am unable to type today. And again, that's another one that is tagged as a different P&L item. That's going to be a question. Because they're doing these things manually, they are doing it based on what they know is the work that they did. But at the same time, like we've said internally, normally you have a vendor for a one-for-one like budget bucket item versus being able to be so manual about stuff. So we know right now we have a couple of new vendors that we need to add. So I am going to unselect all of these and just select the blanks. So we have Zoom, Hearst Magazine, and CBS as new e-wallet. Zoom actually was showing up. I'm wondering if I need to remember how to do this. If the list isn't picking up that past one, so it's going to 199, and that would be why. And let me go back over here and just update the data validation to 205. Now it'll pick up that Zoom. And we need to add Hearst Magazine over here into the e-vendor section. Again, just kind of putting it slightly in alphabetical order. Bring that down. Going to go back over here and copy over the merchant name. And just because I didn't pay attention, it's MSA. We'll add that to the back end of that. And now this will appear here. And then CVS Pharmacy. Go back over here. Only going to go ahead and just pick up this part because the number is based on the location that someone used the credit card at. Let's go ahead and remove that. I'll go back over here. Now CVS is part of the listing, except for I forgot to add the SRA part to it. So let me go back over here and tag the budget name. And I'm going to have to tag it so that it picks up the budget bucket that you want it to go to. So now we have all of these items for $7,504 all tagged. So $7,000, and there were 53 items or 53 charges during the month. And there were also charges that came in with a different tag. What I'm going to do I think for now is I'm going to make notations here because this hasn't happened in a while. Vendor originally tagged at SRA in prior month reporting. This time tagged as MSA. Same kind of concept here. Vendor was originally tagged as MSA, and here they're wanting to tag it as SRA. Don't know. I think for now I'm going to leave, I don't know. I'm actually going to say vendor originally coded as SRA in prior month reporting, this time tagged as MSA. We're also going to say originally coded as MSA. What I'm going to do is I am going to leave those comments there, and then I'm going to show you how to bring it over, and then I will send an email to both Laura and Lucia, and they can figure out how they want to handle that going forward. Okay, so this is the last item that required to be checked because we need to put the vendor information in here. In this particular case, think of this as a multiple payment line item. As I mentioned earlier, in other cases where it's bill.com, you will see in the remarks here, it will say multiple payments made. I will show you what that looks like on a previous report. And we're just going to get it over here for a minute. Actually, I'll show you payment out. But let's finish this credit card one for now. So in this case, we said there were 53 lines. So we need to insert 53 lines. I'm going to overshoot it. And you'll see there, Excel kind of helps you out a little bit with that little box as to how many rows you went down. So all I did was insert rows. So I'm going to insert details from that Divvy account. But what I'm going to first do is kind of give myself a placeholder so that I can remember what I'm trying to get to here. So everything eventually needs to add up to that 7,504. And I highlight them when I have to create a multiple line item for it. Let me go ahead before I copy down any details. I'm going to bring this over. And you can do this a couple of different ways, but for right now, we'll do it this way. What you're going to do is you're going to now grab this vendor name over here. And going to get that there. Pulling that down. And then what I do is, especially when I'm expanding like one line item into multiple, I am going to merge and copy this amount and bold it so that it is a kind of a reminder that this used to be one line item for a payment, but we split it out into multiple for a total of 7,504 in this case. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back over here to the actual amount. I'm going to put that there for right now. I am going to go and grab, the amount from over here. Remember that we flipped signs so that they would be in the same format. And when you're done copying that over, it should be the same amount that we started with. So 7,504.56. It is in fact the same amount, 7,504.56. That was originally there. And then I'm just going to copy this down because it was in fact one transaction that is now entered with multiple lines, but it would still be related to this one bank reference. And I've highlighted the numbers here in orange because that indicates to me that it was originally a one-line item bank account entry in JP Morgan. And then again, I'm just going to copy this information down. To see where I'm at. How many rows there are all the way down. So that started the divvy credit, and you can even highlight that because then it's kind of another reminder that, in fact, this data came from that credit card tab. These are all e-wallet items and that. And I've gone ahead and left the highlights for right now in here. I'm just going to make a notation to reloop with Laura and Lucia on P&L. Because like I said before, these would have been coded as different P&L items. And if they want that ability to have the same vendor tagged to a couple of different P&L items, then what you would have to do over here, as an example, in the Amazon, that's probably not the best example since we have Amazon everywhere. But let me do from over here. So this, you would have to insert another Amazon and call it SRA. And then you have to be really careful when you're tagging it. Let me just do that. So the two that are in question right now is the Amazon and the extra space. So Amazon and extra space. I'm just going to copy over for right now, just so it's abundantly clear as to why I have those highlighted, and then that way you guys can work through what makes sense. a little bit more context. So timing, understood. Okay. So, and this master data tab becomes your own. There's going to be a couple of nuances here as you work through future entries. As an example, there may be something that comes up with Amazon here when Amazon sends each and every a payment. They may use a code that they've used before. There is no rhyme or reason to it, but that's why we have a list of Amazon codes over here when it falls out as a like a name change or a checker, and it truly is just an Amazon payment. I just add or copy that Amazon code over here as a payment processor, and then it will it'll correct itself. There's a couple other items like that, but you can always check unless it's a brand new event or something that's never been done before. You can either ping me or check a previous month's report and see how it was coded. So for example, here, if you go back to October, which I'll show you anyway, in order to show you like the coding when it says multiple payments from Bill.com. If you go here and go to the right and let's look for Amazon, for example. Any of these three Amazon ones originally came through as needing to be checked, but all I did was copy that code. So CD8, CEF, and CEX are probably one of these last ones over here. So CD8, CEF, and CEX were one of the ones that I did here in October. Might be running out of battery here soon because I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so that's October. What I was going to show you over here also was when there is multiple payments and when you have to kind of break them out. So here should show, if I can find one. Yeah, so for example, you'll see this says the vendor name, but if you scroll down, then you'll see ones that say multiple payments or multiple payment bill.com. That was a singular line item that's now highlighted because I've broken it out into now two line items and merged the dollar total amount there. I'm going to get my computer on charger. So I'm moving, so forgive me for here for a minute. But yeah, so when you need to split out the one line item payment into multiple lines, because Bill.com only posted, like they basically took out, let's make it simple math, they took out $20,000 from our bank account in one posting, but then they were paying, 3 or 4 invoices with that one line item. The way you would check that in this case, like for October 9th, if we just go back to Bill.com and payments out, if you do all payments, you can do this a couple of different ways. If you add a filter, you can say, paid from or paid status or last 7 days, especially if you're doing this weekly, which you'll be doing now. You can say like the last 7 days, and then it'll show you, for example, like, these two, what did I just do? Last 7 days, there was only 2 payments that went out the door. This is on 11/3. this is on 10/30, and then here's the invoice number. So for example, if you came over here and changed that filter from last 7 days, I think there's a custom, yeah. So a custom date range. If I want to just show like, there's a line item for multiple line items for October 10th, or excuse me, October 9th, when we were looking at that one. And you can hit apply. So on October 10th, there was these 2 payments. And if you go back to the October report as an example, the total was $13,377. But if you look at those 2 amounts, that's what equals the $13,377.60. So you have to use bill and the payment out report, or the all payments report, and then filter for the process date. And then that way you can find out how many, or all the different invoices that were paid with that one line entry when they charged the JP Morgan bank account. So that's October's report, just as an example. But in the end, what you want to make sure when you're done with this at the each month end close, if you filter for this check column, you want to make sure that you have details in columns AL, AM, and AN, as well as AO. So these blue highlighted columns, you're going to want to make sure that you have everything tagged. So you'll have to just kind of go through here and you'll see a couple different things. Most of them are bill.com that you're having to put the details for, but every once in a while you'll have a line item for different service fees, whether it's the bank service fee or the platform service fee. In this case, you'll see these I didn't highlight in yellow because they were singular payments. So if you're going to go over here to the left, you'll see where it just showed like the actual payment to that vendor, where we had a lot in the month of October that were clustered with multiple bill payments or multiple payments by bill with one charge. That's why there's a lot of orange on this report. But it's nice when it's a one-for-one. So here was a federal package invoice, and you just find the federal package, and it's just a vendor payment. So that was the month of October that I just completed for Laura. And then this is the month of November that we're working on right now and being updated. And so this is all good through today, as an example. I'm going to make sure that this is unfiltered and wide open, meaning all of the columns are unhidden, so that when you come in here on Monday morning, it's easy for a copy paste. Just going to go scroll down through here. And a lot of times what I'll do as well during the month, when I would do this kind of on a daily or every other day basis update, because I have access to the JP Morgan account, I would just highlight that sort of as a reminder to me, like when I go and get the next, report. So in your case, the next Monday's report, as a reminder, like look for November 5th and 4:35 on the report that you would get from Laura, and then only copy over anything that's new versus that particular date and time. Because you might have, and I know you will, you'll have, you will in fact have probably a handful more entries on November 5th that are after that 4:35 a.m. date. And so then I just kind of go ahead and just leave our cursor over there as a reminder. And then this particular tab is done for this month. And now I can update this pivot table. And you'll notice it just brings over that one line item for the credit card. Master data is also done for right now. And then we're going to go to this front one, which is the kind of the summary report for Laura. So it's just a RP to LL, which is just a report to Laura. And we're going to update the pivot table. And then what you're going to eventually do is filter only for vendor when checking versus your monthly payment report. So over here, you're going to filter just for the word vendor. And right now, that would be the only thing in the month of November on the master data report. But you're going to want to check. So actually what I should have done was kept the October one open. I'm going to open this one back up and demonstrate for a minute kind of that double check. So we're going to go back over here. I'm going to open up October again and just show you that double check at the end of the month. So this is the month of October. I've gone ahead and had saved the file with the filter for just vendor. And you'll see it says total paid $449,257.53. You're going to come back over here to your master report of invoices. And I'm going to unhide the October paid just to demonstrate what I'm showing you here. When you're all said and done and updating your master workbook over here for the month-end close, and everything's been copied over from or pulled out from the outstanding to a paid tab, this right here, this paid amount, this should check out with the JP Morgan Daily Bank file. So there's also a reminder note here that this is the amount that was paid out of the bank account and should also match what is in the bank account. So when you go back over here and you have filtered properly just for vendor payments, because that's all that other tab is doing, that total amount should be the same. So you see 449,257.53, 449,257.53. So that's another kind of fail safe to make sure that what you have shown as paid in the month that you're closing is in fact what is showing up on the JP Morgan report as paid and part of the close itself. So I'm going to close this October file. I have saved this, I believe. I'm going to save this in the folder for the month of November in the JP Morgan reporting file. So JP Morgan daily and monthly reports, daily reporting, fiscal year November, and that's already here with my notes. And I save that. I'm going to close this report. And then this one is done for now. You can even unfilter it for right this moment in time, but we'll leave that way. I will come back over here and I will shut this report down from this tab. And then that way, when you come in on Monday, you will start directly from November 5th at 4:30 in the morning. Copy over from that. I'm going to close that. I also can close that fill out. And then you'll notice over here some payment out pages that I saved, and then the JP Morgan report that I did a couple times during the month. And then in November, this is the report that you're working on for the month. This is the data dump from JP Morgan that I pulled since I have the bank access, but this is the report that you'll get from Laura going forward. This was the credit card charges that we copied out of the email that we got from Lucia that is also on here as a reference. And so for now, that is it as it relates to the JP Morgan reporting video. I will go ahead and send an email offline, or not being videotaped it, and I will copy you and I will send it to Laura and Lucia just as a heads up that for the month November close, they all need to come together and decide if they are going to allow for one vendor and multiple budget coding, or if they aren't going to do that and stick with the coding that it's for. Since it's manual now, it could probably be done, but going forward, when they change systems and code a particular vendor to the type of budget line item that they're going to say that, XYZ vendor is only TDC, you should in fact only have a vendor one for one as it relates to the type of budget. But that's for them to decide. So for now, that is it as it relates to the JP Morgan monthly reporting. If you have any questions when you're going through it, don't hesitate to let me know, as I actually created this particular process about 4 years ago. So even Manuel Guzman was following, in essence, the same process set up for JP Morgan that I had created way back when. Hope this makes sense. If you have any questions, let me know. Take care.